This month is not the month to rush. It's the month to review the previous step and to go like this, one step in front of the other.
Hello, fellow flames. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Harmony, and I will help you live fearless, live loved, and live free. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you know when all my videos and content come live. Before we jump into this month's astrology reading, I want to make sure to remind everybody about the Twin Flame Ascension Oracle deck that we're going to be drawing a card for today. And so if you've not got your deck or you'd like to learn more, make sure to check out the link above and below. Today we have the November astrology report with Tatiana, and I'm super excited about this because, as many of you have known, we've been going through some really intense portals. We've had some eclipses here in October, and as we have shifted into November and that Scorpio energy, we're really diving deep into a sense of seeing the underworld, and that just kind of came through. We're seeing the underworld. So I'm going to open up to Tatiana. And Tatiana, welcome.
Oh, hello, Harmony. Thank you so much for having me again. And hello, everyone. Excited to be here with you and bring you some more of the astrology for the month. A continuation, a little bit of the intense regenerative forces that have been brewing for all these months. So it's nothing really new. However, we're seeing a big push through in the energy. You know, when you get hit the apex of things and it's just it can't go anywhere else, that's where kind of where we're at. And I would like to invite a Harmony to pick a card. I felt very strongly to draw a card. Like my deck, unfortunately, I have it in another building right now. Or Harmony has
Ooh,
her
this is so
deck.
interesting. It just kind of
And
popped
I
up.
feel, yeah. So what
Ooh,
does it say?
okay. It says soulmate and it says clearing core wounds.
Wonderful. Like, yeah, I thought either that one or the karmic entanglements would pop
Yeah.
up because
Well, yeah, this doesn't surprise me. The clearing core wounds is coming up for so many people, and I'll let you kind of take over from the astrology, but I could say a lot about that
yeah,
myself.
and I will say about that because of the nature of the eclipse that's coming. I mean, we just had an eclipse, and there's the second eclipse. It's coming on November 8th. So the first, let's say, 2 weeks are like impregnated with eclipse energy, and eclipses are like these portals where things are literally let go of so we can move forward with new things. It's always these portals, these passages. And depending on the eclipse, there's different things that can happen. In this particular eclipse season, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Taurus Scorpio axis because this is where these eclipses are happening and will color and taint the next six months. So this is the axis. Taurus is what we gather, what we accumulate, what we magnetize toward us, what we like me, my things, my survival, right? What keeps me alive, the basics. Scorpio is where we shed, we let go, we die to, we let the skin. So this is an axis. So it moves like this. This is why we keep talking about, well, now it's time to release and let go of things. And it seems like we're always saying this. However, this is how cycles work. Every year we have a Scorpio season. The harvest, after the harvest, there's the deadheading and the falling of the leaves and the winter, and then there's the spring. So seasons. So understanding that this is one of those big seasons for the planet in a certain way, where what we are kind of shedding or letting go is our attachments to things that are toxic, to things, to the drama, to the lower frequencies, to my precious things that are no longer supporting evolution. And it's more linked to relationship and our relationship to value. And I'm not just saying money as value, I'm saying value as value. What is valuable? And I think we did talk about this last month. but this is being more highlighted, and now we're gonna now this is it. Now this is where the kick happens. If you have not been affecting these changes, this is where the kick happens. Why? Because it's not like it just happens overnight. This has been a call for a while. What do you truly value? What is essential? Hello, humans, what's essential? What's valuable for you? What is the essential? What do you actually need to survive and be okay and be happy? Is it the luxurious whatever and the boat over there and the or is it like the relationships that is it love? Is it the people? Is it the food you eat? Is it like, oh my gosh, the warm blanket I have at night and my little roof, it's like, and the relationships we have one another, and those things have been so much put into question, and that's why when we talk about this Taurus Scorpio axis, we talk about the financial systems and we talk about money and we talk about collapses. But ultimately, what's important is value. What do we value? What is essential? Scorpio is about going to the essence. The essence is where the depth is. That's what we have been talking about, depth and depth. Because this coming month, especially first 2 to 3 weeks, this is where now we're getting to the brass tacks. Now this is it. This is where we see it, where we talk about it, where we shed it, where there's no more like sugarcoating things and making pretty, and it's not light, it's not fluffy, not at all. This is where we go. This is where the core wounds are. So if you might don't mind putting the card up and showing it.
Mm. Yes.
Exactly. You see the core wounds and you see the two people there. Those are the soulmates. And that's where the Venus energy that is ruling, well, not ruling, but it's part of this eclipse because Venus, the planet of love, relationship, magnetism, abundance, self care, self love, all of that. The planet of that planet is in this eclipse in the middle of it. And it's the planet of relationship. The only way to see the shadow, and we all know this if you're in this channel, is through another. Sometimes the hardest things we have to acknowledge about ourselves come through another. And not just the interaction with the cashier. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking to those deep interactions where the souls have been merged. Sometimes at this time, what's coming up is deep soul contracts that are coming to like, this is it. This is the final debt. Have we paid our debts? And debt can come in like, well, I owe you this, you owe me that. That can be simple, like in a mundane sense. But karmic debt, where we have been involved for many, maybe centuries or millennia in soul dynamics. Well, this is it. This is where it says, where we're saying this is eclipse. This eclipses have been happening in the Scorpio and Taurus. The first solar eclipse was in the Scorpio, meaning, okay, that's the south node. Those relationships, those bonds that, okay, those karmic cycles, the end. And this is where we need to see. And then we might have people in our lives that have been maybe forever in our lives, or actually people that show up that are a karmic contract from the past, those soulmates that appear suddenly to say, I love you as a soul, but we have something to square here. And these karmic debts are being shed right now. And I'd like to share a little bit of a personal story about how I did this Ho'oponopono ritual, and I with the people that I'm currently living with, and because I felt there's a lot of these are like soulmates of or soul family that are here to show me also maybe dynamics and cycles of that I've been working personally with, um to release and free myself from that, especially if you are between the ages of 42 and 44. This is for you. These eclipses are for you. These are your eclipses, if that's your age, because this is where you are freeing yourself up from deep-seated soul wound patterns, things needing to move. And for each person is different according to your own personal birth chart. And if you don't know about that, you can always, uh, reach out to me and through the Harmonies platform, and
All
I
the
can help.
links would be below to check
Yeah.
out.
In case you wanna know, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm 40 to 44 years old, and is this me? What's happening?" Like, I can help you, like, understand why this crisis is happening, because for that group age, these eclipses are that final release of soul contracts. They don't come easy. So again, I go back to this Ho'oponopono ritual that I did very consciously. Sometimes the energy, we're not aware of it. We don't know where it comes from. These fears, deep-rooted fears and core wounds that we have no idea where they came from. Sometimes they come from the past, but they show up in this like unexplicable paranoias or unexplicable, anxieties that just flare up. This is what can happen with Scorpio. These flare ups of anxiety, of not knowing, of emotionality, of like, I'm gonna die. And you just don't know where these things come from. But this is where that energy comes up. And with our consciousness, we do rituals like the Ho'oponopono, where you can either do it with people in front of you if they're open to that, or you can do it with a photograph of the people intended, where you want to clear your contract. And you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I forgive you and thank you. And then I love you. And then you renew the bond so you can release the energy and you give this energy to the violet flame and you ask for assistance from your guides. Then you ask for the higher assistance that is absolutely there. And why is that assistance there this month? Because we also have a beautiful, beautiful supportive aspect from Jupiter and Neptune, the planets of faith and spirituality and unity and the ocean of consciousness, and Venus, the planet of relationship and love. So there is this difficulty like moving through all of this, and there's this gray. So I would like to show you a couple of images about how this energy is presenting itself. So the first image. So in this image, we see the Scorpio archetype here on the left, where it is about that death process to be reborn, going to that cave, the cave of the underworld, the waters that are the deepest and dirtiest and murkiest and scariest, so that we can transform into that butterfly that flies out to the light in the cave, the phoenix. That is this Scorpio. And then the image on the right, that's the Venus in Scorpio. There is something beautiful about death. And this is the image of that, like the Day of the Dead that's celebrated in Mexico. And it's not like, it's interesting that Halloween would have just passed, right? And how that's celebrated as the Samhain, or the day of honoring the dead, right? Beyond our modern connotation of Halloween, and a little bit superficial. No, the actual meaning is to honor the passage, the shedding of the skin. And this image talks about the beauty of it, and how when we see death as a beautiful process, we elevate it to different heights, to its highest expression in Scorpio. The low expressions of Venus in Scorpio is manipulation, is trying to get things your way, is being possessive and and jealous. And that's the low energy of it. And why does it appear like that? Because we don't want to let something go. So when we're like attached too much, there's this suffering because we can't let it go, but it's already dead. Let it go. And when the process is elevated to the status of beauty, to the status of grace, then what happens is that in a man's healing and breakthrough, these releases are like, sometimes the fear of losing something is because we don't know what we gain on the other side. That's where the fear comes from. And these fears will come. With these eclipses, we might find everybody in deep panic of losing something, deep panic. So the message is like, with loss is not really loss. Death is never death. Death is the soil for a new something. It's coming back to that basic understanding. And if we get to that point, that's where the wisdom and the growth really happen. Otherwise, we stay in suffering. And well, then you suffer. So in this image, you can see on the left, there's this lady looking at herself in the mirror, and she's got this distorted mouth and nose, and maybe possibly thinking how ugly she is and how not pretty. That's worth. And maybe if we were to turn around, she's the most gorgeous human, divine. But it's the perception of not being worthy. Then this other image on the right is this couple that seems to be disconnected, sad. They've been probably together forever and not meeting eye to eye. There's this kind of sadness in the air. So this is the energy that might be the feel of the energy that some relationships have cooled off, that things are so cold and so devoid of that pleasure, that love, that fluffiness that we're forced to see. Is that even worth moving forward? Or is this what we need to let go? Sometimes being in solitude and isolation and feeling that disconnection is what prompts us to reconnect. If we truly value it, we will reconnect. If it's something that has lost completely its value, then it's time to release. That's why these energies come up, and that's why they feel like that. So you might feel this void, especially because this eclipse is putting in such tension the new birth of this new earth and reality. This is it. This is the kick. We've been talking about this for the whole year. And I think these eclipses are the kick. That's it. This is the kick. This is where if you have no food, you'll value food. If you have no water, you'll value water. If you have no power, you'll value power. If your lover's gone, you will love her. You will value your lover. There's this call to see what is left. Once you have sifted through everything, what's left? That you cherish, you treasure, and then you do the next exercise. What do I have? Not what do I lack? What do I don't have? Why am I not having this? What do I actually have? Oh my gosh, these three things. I'm so grateful for these. That elevates the energy to its highest expression because that is where gratitude, love, and compassion reside. And that's where the true abundance is and the true freedom. It's not in the fighting and I want to be this and I want. It's in those small little realizations. And this is really important message. This is not light to be taken lightly. This is because you might find yourself there. So just remember what is left is essential, and what is essential to the soul is perfect and divine, and will then multiply again and grow into something new and big and abundant and beautiful. Even if this time feels like, so yes, this is not the time for big splurge or big, this is the time for deep introspection and to also review the actions that we have taken in the past few months. Mars is retrograding, that is our actions. What actions have you taken? Review them. Are they the right path? Are they not the right path? Are you going too forcefully? Do you need to take a break? Do you need to maybe go slower? Introspection, like that energy of, the November energies, that mist. That's the energy. Of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, but the energy of it is what I'm talking about. And the last image, and then this image, then this is what happens when we enter in that void of self, in that deep, almost hole, like when you go into your cave of maybe despair. But then this is what you see. There's this grace coming from a place that is divine. We can't explain it. The veil is super thin. We can't explain it. But it's like the energy of the goddess comes raining down on you like those petals, the rose petals of Mary Magdalene, right? And they run and you suddenly feel like a big blanket of love is with you and that you are never alone. Even through the darkest times, you will be walked with a light of hope and grace and beauty. And this can be expressed through art, through music, through connections that are super supportive, through that person that actually says, I love you. That stranger in the street that will smile at you when you are in despair. And that's where the gold is. That's the real gold, not in the panic and the paranoia of the crazy times we're living in. And beware of the panic and the paranoia because don't let your actions be guided by fantasies or delusions. This is a time where Mars will be squaring that Neptune Jupiter. So if you're hearing things and you're not sure what they are, but you heard from somebody who heard this, who heard that, who said this, and then you get in panics and in delusions, then you take actions that are, let's say, that take you away from your true path, that get you distracted. So this is why it's very important to make sure that you're stepping on firm ground. Every single step, slow and steady. This month is not the month to rush. It's the month to review the previous step and to go like this, one step in front of the other. Touch the ground. Is it solid ground? Is that the path? Make sure that you have what you have built in the past months, what you it's that's exactly it, and that it's supported, and that the ground beneath you is solid and it's based on a certain sense of reality, and not in a sense of panic or delusion or stress or media. I would recommend highly, like, stay away from social media, stay away from trivial debates, stay away from the fear mongering propagandas, like stay away from all of that, because that's what will promote a state of thinking that can get you away from you, from your own path and your own sense of of discovery of who you are right now. So what comes at the end of the month is, as things start moving into Sagittarius season, that's when we find the higher meaning in why all of this shedding. And the higher meaning can always put us in a great adventure. And we'll talk a lot more about Sagittarius next month. But it's by the end of the month, this is what we're going to have. This, like, okay, that's why this was for. This is the meaning of it. There's, and there is like this optimistic vibe that comes after after the rain comes the rainbow. This is that energy of this month. It's a mixed bag. But because you're watching this right now, you can already start preparing. And if you do your grieving processes, and grieving doesn't mean necessarily a death of, it could be death of a pattern, death of a soul contract, death of an actual thing that you don't need anymore, a job, death of a relationship that needs to go, death maybe of a home that you need to move from. So before it's taken away, well, you grieve it, you give it up gracefully, and you give it up with that, like the beautiful image of that, um of 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 that Day of the Dead, Katrina, right? You give it up with that sense of joy, and then the period will not feel as suffered. It will feel as the natural shedding of skin. You see, it's just a shift in thinking shifts the whole experience. So this is my take for today, and that's all I have to say. But it's pretty powerful, all channeled. So, Harmony, your turn. What do you have to say about all this?
Well, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well said and on time. And as always, I'm still writing on the book I'm working on about, becoming unified within and aligning with the divine. And so everything you said aligns with the energy, but I think it's also the energy that's going forward with us. I think that the tools we're learning, we're going to continue the death and rebirth constantly. Like, so this is going to be ongoing, and we're learning how to do it in a new way. And so as we move forward, I think our cycles of death are going to speed up, but they don't have to be as painful if we can learn some of the things we're learning now. We've been learning. I think a lot of people collectively are moving a little bit past the collective suffering. That doesn't mean individuals aren't still suffering, but I think our collective suffering is starting to shift. And I think that that's where we'll see in the spring coming out the other side of the collective changing into the new way, is what I feel. And I also want to say this is really deep, and cycles of, not just ourself, karmic people, partners, and this extends also into the ancestral wounding and cultural conditions, and the deep stuff is what we're doing now, because Julian and I had a transit session with Tatiana last week, and I wanted to see what my future looks like between now and going forward over these next 6 months. So make sure you check out her links below. And even though it's not on there, if you schedule a session, you can notify her and let her know she could do a transit for you like she's done for me. And it was very helpful. But one of the things she suggested during this eclipse season was what her ritual was with the forgiveness prayer of the Hawaiian Ohobono prayer. And to do the ritual she did with her community, she suggested Julian and I do it for ourselves individually, ourselves together, and then our ancestors. Because as many of you've heard, my grandfather was the head of the KKK, and then his heritage came from the area of Africa where the slaves were freed, and so we carry a lot of collective karma together in our ancestors of bringing unity and balance amongst a really big thing within our own templates, basically in our together template. So I just want to say thank you, Tatiana, because you and I have not spoke since we talked about that ritual. And Julian and I did the ritual, and it was very powerful. And I have to say that I took it one step further than we talked about. I took it to the point the day that him and I were going to do it, I felt guided to do my own first. And I literally did it and did it in a mirror. And I lit a candle for myself in the mirror. And I even took a shower when I was done. And I started it before the shower and lit the candle and started doing the I love you, I'm sorry, thank you, please forgive me. Lit the candle, was going through looking eye to eye in the mirror. And also start naked. Okay. It was a cleansing process. It was stripping, freeing, shutting, and purification and letting go. And took the shower to cleanse, came out, finished it, completed it, went and started writing. Julian had came home and we'd already knew we were going to do it. And then we did an offering of the same thing, lighting a candle together for our individual selves and basically going through offering forgiveness and asking forgiveness, and not just this lifetime, but every lifetime for ourselves. But we actually moved it from the ancestors forward. So we started it with our ancestors and then we brought it into us together and then our individual selves. And so, and we let the candles burn until they burned out, and we actually used, because it was two of us, we had two white candles. And then we had one little teacup candle that was like a black one. I just happened to have it in something that wasn't intentional, but it was like shadows. So it was like the karmic stuff was in there. And we each lit our own, we lit the together, we lit the shadow one, letting it go. And then we each lit our own and helped the other with our individual ones that represented us. And we let all that burn out. And I got to tell you, the shifts that took place in that has been very life-changingly transformational. So number one, thank you for that suggestion. And I would recommend anybody listening to this, please let us know if you're here still and you're hearing this. I know some of you, when I've said that, you do let me know this because I like to know who's made it this far. But if you've listened to this whole thing, you're getting to the cream of the crop and those nuggets and the pieces here at the end that can change your life, just thinking about that for yourself and your ancestors and with anyone. And like she said, even if they're not present with you, like Julian was with me, you can do it, not even just an image or a picture, you can do it for the higher self as well.
Yes, that is beautifully said. And remember one thing, when you free up energies of yourself, and not just yourself, but your whole ancestry line, it ripples across the universe. It just ripples. So I can't stress enough how important this is, because it impacts at levels that we have not even began to understand. And I do feel that a lot of the energy of slavery is being released from our planet. A lot of us have come with that energy, especially the ones, you know, certain people around this age as well. Anybody with that, you know, or feelings that you have been in a certain cycle, karmic cycle of slavery, which unfortunately today is still happening in our planet. So much slavery. And slavery comes in many ways. It's not just the slaves that are like in ball and chain. No, it's it's all the mental slavery. It's the way governments or people or bosses or corporations, everything has enslaved the human to not be themselves, to not connect to their own true self. And this is a huge energetic imprint that we're shifting. So doing these releases with your consciousness will free up, free up all that energy from the world and impact hugely. So don't like I recommend you actually do it very, very consciously, very seriously. It's a beautiful ritual. If you'd like, I can leave the whole ritual in the description below. I'll
Yeah, that would
just
be beautiful.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a write-up, it's 1 page, but we'll put it in the description, so if you're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do the ritual," there's a whole explanation of how it's done and what it is about. So, we'll leave it in the description below so you can do it, and you can also copy paste it, share it to all your friends, family, people, and do these rituals before the eclipses. Don't do it on the eclipse because that's where that's the time for the movement of the energy. Do it previous to it. And you can do these releases actually whenever, but this is powerful. Okay, so that's about
Awesome.
it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tatiana. And thank you, everyone. And make sure to check out all the links that you can glow forward with Tatiana below and how you can book an evolutionary reading or another reading with her. And may you always face your fears, find freedom, and glow forward on fire. Namaste.